Second round picks are not other people's garbage. In episode 10 of the Royal City Hoops podcast, I'm Bill Gagne. We're going to talk about drafting for dummies and second round picks. One thing this podcast has taught me in doing video is I've got a really limited wardrobe. And it's a good thing my wife doesn't watch this because she'd be blowing me up in the comments. I mean, I guess I'd love to tell you that I'm batching these, but they're all going to look the same because, I guess you can tell by the fact that I shave very little. But, who's watching anyways? I'm always kind of going to wear the same hat because my sister-in-law coaches this team. This is the Ontario Tech Ridgeback. She's the women's head coach. Shout out to them if anybody's watching. But second round picks, they are not garbage. Let's talk some hoops here and not my wardrobe. So I did a podcast a little while ago talking about why your team sucks. And in episode 9, we talked about how the Houston Rockets have no draft assets. How are they going to get better? And often said we look at trades, or at least I look at trades or used to, and go, oh man, they just threw in some second round picks. What are they going to need those for? And the older I got and the more I started understanding what I meant to invest and develop. Like I run a business, I got to invest in people and all that and develop them. And when the nerdier I've gotten into hoops and listening to different podcasts, Woj mentioned something that 90% of the NBA are role players. Role players. So think about that. When you're drafting, and we're going to do some segments of drafting in the lottery, mid-first round, late first round, how it all works, how you should really think about it if you're a player that loves their team. Getting the number 1 pick doesn't mean you're going to get a great player, and getting the 30th pick in the draft doesn't mean you're going to get a crappy player. Jimmy Butler was drafted 30th. I'm pretty sure most teams in the NBA will take Jimmy Butler at 30 if they have him. So who you're drafted by, how your organization is built, when you're drafted, and the team sort of plan is all important. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to use 2 really good examples, right? We're going to use the Knicks and the Nets, 2 New York teams. And I don't know if you remember the movie, I think it's Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Well, you need a foundation. If you don't have a top draft pick and you're a crappy team, you need to start by building players who are pros, guys who are going to be in the league a long time, who have a skill, who are going to have good attitudes. You need to build a culture and all of that. It's buzzwordy, but it's true. The Nets are a great example of that. They built a team from nothing, had a great culture, and then they just drew in their 2 big players, right? Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Picked them over the Knicks because they had a better culture, they had a better foundation in terms of players. Now that's going to be tested again because a bunch of those guys are free agents coming up, and who knows how that's all going to play out. And we'll talk about the Nets in another podcast because they're a lot of fun. The Knicks, on the other hand, are always swinging for the fences. They're always trying to land that big free agent. This year they did a terrible job because they have no patience. You need patience and you need luck. And the definition of luck, the saying is, luck is where opportunity and preparation meet. And the Knicks have not done anything to build a foundation. They signed every leftover power forward to their team, and they built nothing. Now, they're probably going to have to move some of those guys around. They're on not too bad contracts. So I guess the only positive for the Knicks, who we'll dig into on another podcast again, is that they didn't completely screw it up, which is what they normally do. But let's go back to what we were talking about, second round picks and the value of second round picks. Again, we talked about developing players. Golden State Warriors, great example. And this year they are horrible. However, they may have found a player in Eric Paschall, I don't know how to say his name, who will probably be a rotation guy for them, or if not, an asset that they can trade to get a rotation player that fits better with their pieces. Again, in the previous podcast, we talked about how to build your team, the components you need. He's a piece. Right now it's only a year in and they're terrible and somebody's got to score for them. However, he does look like a player. He does pass the eye test. at the very least. Now, I went back and I looked at the second round picks all the way back to 2000. Now, the oldest second round draft pick still playing is Zaza Pachulia, and he was drafted in 2003. Hey, again, I wrote things down, so I'm on top of this. 2003, he was drafted. Now, something to keep in mind is a lot of these second round picks don't stay with the team that drafted them. They move around a bit. But the point of this is that you can draft somebody in the second round who is a real pro, who's going to have a long career. That's 16 years. You know, there's some really good players in this list. I mean, Gilbert Arenas, potential Hall of Famer, he's on the list. Michael Redd, All-Star, Olympian, he's on the list. He's the oldest, 2000. I mean, Zaza's class in 2003 has like 7 guys who are legit NBA players and played for a long time. I think the best second round draft might be the 2012 draft we've got Draymond, Jay Crowder, Chris Middleton, Will Barton, Kyle O'Quinn, and Thomas Satoransky are all part of that draft. Draymond's an all-star. He's a key piece to the Warriors. The Warriors do not work. Their system does not function without Draymond. He gets drafted by another team. Maybe he doesn't develop the same way. He's the old school point forward. He doesn't need to score. The biggest plus they got when the Warriors were at their best was when Draymond was making threes. Like he was shooting something like 40% one year or high 30s. If he makes those, even at a decent clip, he doesn't need to score 10 points a game. He just needs to score some open ones. And everything else he does, his whole floor game, plays to them. First team All-NBA this year, Nikola Jokis was the 41st pick in the draft in the 2014 draft. Think about that. 41st. 40 teams said, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to take him. And he was all NBA last year. So to think that you cannot, I mean, the reality is most teams are going to build through the draft. You got the exception of the Lakers who have the cachet and the whole LA thing to bring in free agents. They're one of the exceptions. Miami's another. But even if you think about Miami's championship teams, they had a guy on it that they drafted, Dwayne Wade. So you don't get those other pieces if you don't have Dwayne Wade. That's it. There's nothing else to it. So you need to draft well. Miami's done a great job this year drafting. Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. Was Duncan Robinson a first-round pick or was he unsigned? I can't remember. They do well bringing in young players. Bam Adebayo. He was 4 years sitting behind Hassan Whiteside. Another second-round pick. He was a second-round pick of the Sacramento Kings, I believe, I got it right here in front of me. Where is he? 2010. So he's been in the league almost 10 years as a second-round pick. Marc Gasol, All-Star, second-round pick. So there's tons out there. You can find rotation players in the second round. And if you're going to be a dominant team, if you're going to build your program from the bottom up, you can't swing for the fences. If you don't think there's a guy out there, if you're guessing, this guy could do it. I mean, we'll get into another podcast about how many misses there are. Drafting high is no guarantee that you're going to be good. And the Cleveland Cavaliers are a prime example of that. I mean, the last few years alone, they drafted Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, who play the same position. That's not really good for you to be spending high first-round picks on two guys who play the same position 2 years in a row. But again, topic for another podcast. Let's talk about some other guys. 2018, we got Devontae Graham, Mitchell Robinson, Bruce Brown, who plays for the Pistons. Again, maybe he's not great. Jalen Brunson, second-round pick. He's contributing. I mean, he was contributing his rookie year. He was playing well. Devontae Graham came on this year. We've got 2014 with Nikola Jokis. Who else is in there? Joe Harris on the Nets, Spencer Dinwiddie on the Nets. Neither of those guys started on the Nets, but they're there. They're second-round picks. Will Barton, key role player for the Nuggets. Great player, second-round pick. So they come. The other thing with second-round picks, I'm going to get sidetracked here again. I do that a lot. They're cheap. Your salary cap is protecting your salary cap is incredibly important in the age of the luxury tax. You're looking at teams, we talked about the Rockets in the previous podcast. They got $119 million in the big year coming up, or in 2 years, on 4 players, and no picks this coming year. How are you going to build your team? How are you going to be able to pay your big name players and not develop the young guys who are on rookie deals that are set in stone? You have 5 years of that before you got to give them a big deal. So the NBA is becoming a little bit like the NFL, where if you can get a quarterback on a rookie contract, he's fixed. You can build the rest of your team around that. That's invaluable to setting a foundation of your organization. The Nets are the prime example. I mean, how many other second-round picks are DeAndre Jordan and Goran Dragic, 2 valuable starting players in the NBA for a long time. Real pros. You need guys who are professional, who take their craft seriously, who get better every year. You're not going to get Kevin Durant every draft, because every time you draft in the top picks, you're just as likely to get Greg Oden, God bless him, injuries, unfortunate, or Kevin Durant. There's no knowing what's going to turn out. There could be all the certainty in the world. As many people as can say they knew Luka Doncic was going to be a stud, there's no guessing. So trading around second-round picks like they're nothing unless you're in a position to win and those second-round picks aren't valuable in the sense you're not going to develop that player isn't smart. If you are a team that sucks, every draft pick is valuable. The more you can stockpile, the better. Because, the Spurs, they drafted Louis Scola. They drafted Goran Dragic. They drafted Manu Ginobili. These are all second-round picks. So that's what I got to say about drafting for dummies. We'll probably work our way backwards. We're going to talk about late first round, mid first round. We'll talk about the lottery in another episode. So that's what we got for today. Like if you like, comment if you got something to say, and subscribe at your own risk. And I gotta go do some laundry. Thanks for watching or listening.